Ladies and gentlemen, join me this Monday on The Sofa with Esther in the series Men Supporting Men, where I will be joined by Courtney Brown from Father to Father, Kwame McPherson, author, entrepreneur, book coach, Davinch Chance, and Dante Jordan from Rough Ends, who will share about their challenges and an emotional trauma and their journey through healing and transformation.
I know they taught his little boys that boys and men don't cry. That's not true. Men cry too. Men cry too.
Good afternoon, wherever you are across the globe. Welcome to the series, On the Sofa with Esther, in the series Men Supporting Men. And today, this is part 2 of the segment called His Story, where we are going to go raw and deep with these gentlemen. There's 2 other gentlemen that are going to be joining us in between times, and that's Dante Jordan, excuse me, and Davinch Chance from Rough Ends. And so tonight, sit back, relax, and we're going to hear some really incredible stories from these incredible men who've been through, who have been on that transformational journey, and who have come through the other end, where they are now impacting the lives of others, not just with their story, but with the work they do. So welcome, 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 Courtney Brown from Father to Father.
Thank you, Esther.
And also Kwame McPherson.
In the ass. In the ass.
In the what?
In the house. In
In
the house.
the house. It didn't sound like that from my end.
All right. Yeah, I'm here. Thank you, Esther. Thank you, Esther.
Hello. And who's just joined us is Dante Chi.
Hey,
Jordan.
Hey, Dante.
how you feeling?
Hey, Dante.
Good. We're good. I'm good. I'm busy. Good. Crazy busy. Gentlemen. Productive.
Yeah. I can relate.
Very productive.
Great thing again, Dante.
I'm good, brother. Just coming from grabbing my baby girl from school.
Oh,
Nice.
yes. There's a time difference. Your baby girl. How old is she?
17.
That's the father. That's the daddy thing.
Nice.
Excellent. I can't say that for my boys because they're 30 and 32. So it's almost like I'll have to say I'm going to grab my big man's them. Anyway, let's keep moving. Let's move because I know that we've got a sort of limited amount of time today. So today, as I said, we've got these gentlemen and they're going to be sharing some of their deep, authentic moments in life, and what do they do, how do they deal with it, and how did they come out the other end. And first and foremost, I'm going to ask Courtney to step into the room. Courtney Brown. And before that, I'm going to show an excerpt from his promo. Yeah. So give me a moment, ladies and gents. Let's hope I can do this. Oh gosh, trust it to go back to where I didn't want it to go back to before. And supporting men.
Something is not right.
He was a community hero. But for me, it was like, well, this is what I experienced at home.
Okay, so that was just an excerpt from the main documentary. So over to you, Courtney, your journey.
Okay, thank you for that, Esther. So my name is Courtney Brown. I'm the CEO and founder of an organization called Father to Father. I also sit on the trustee of Mind in Haringey, which is a mental health organization, charity, and I'm also the vice chair of a a strategic organization called OMA, that stands for Open Minds Alliance. And we, in OMA, we highlight and we celebrate organizations from the African Caribbean community that does work around mental health in our community. What you just all witnessed there was my journey called Me, My Father and Mental Health. And it's a journey that talks about adverse childhood experiences, but in particular, mental health. I grew up with a dad that had mental health or was diagnosed with schizophrenia, I believe in the 80s. And I say was diagnosed with schizophrenia because for those that don't know, when, back in the 70s and 80s, there was no culturally competent organization for Black men. So my dad came over from Jamaica, Augustown, to this country here, the UK, and he was up against a lot: racism, unemployment, police brutality, everything. And at that time, Black men was just seen as angry, and just keys were thrown away and they were thrown into an institution. And I remember visiting my dad in that institution, drugged up. Wasn't the figure that I remembered him as. So he was drugged up, big, and the drug had swelled him up. And can you imagine, as a young Black boy at that time, I think it was age 13, 14, when I saw my dad like that, how traumatic that was for me. So that's one side. So this story talks about my journey of that. And it also highlights my dad's journey as well. But then also, growing up in a community where mental health was frowned upon, it was stigma. Here in the community, all the type of names that I would hear about my dad. His mad papa, madman, all of those negative names. Yeah, labels. Thank you. And it really did impact me. So I was very much angry with my dad, because at a young age, I'm thinking that, you should be here to protect me. But obviously I'm in a young age, and how could you put me in this position? That's how I was thinking there, so embarrassment, everything. And I was trying to, I would say, I was, ashamed, because, I was a youngster, I didn't know much about mental health, but then there's this community that is supposed to be supportive, also putting down my dad with all of those labels. So fast forward on now, I tried to live out, because I should have said my dad, he ran the area. He ran the area that we lived in, which was Tottenham near Broadwater Farm. He was that man. And so obviously I grew up with all of that, knowing and tried to become like him. At the age of 21, I had my first son, and I didn't want him to go through what I had gone through. So I jumped off the road thing and everything. But what then happened, and this was when I had my first bout of depression, is that my son's mum left me at that time there. And it just shattered me. I was in my room for about a year and a half. I was drinking, I was sleeping, if I went out into the community, because my dad was a name brand and I had become a name brand myself, I thought everybody was talking about it. So there was paranoia. Yeah, paranoia. As I said, sleeping, not eating, headache, everything was going on for me there. And the only way, and it's funny because obviously now I can look back, but the only way I found my way, which was my coping strategy, is that I became this other person. So it was my alter ego that came in. And so my alter ego was this other guy called Courtney Sweet.
Oh,
so,
yes.
Yeah, so it was like this other alter ego. So Courtney Sweet was this guy, because it was all, what I realized now is that my self-esteem was low on the back of losing, you know, on the back of my children's mum leaving me. And, you know, I didn't want that, because I wanted that whole family, because I didn't have it when I was a child. So when I bought into this auto ego now, it was the champagne lifestyle, the suit, the pretty women, the money. I really bought into it. And what made it even worse is when people were saying, he's just like his papa.
Oh, wow.
So there was me now living out this lifestyle, and it was the auto ego took over.
Mm.
So that was how I got out of that depression. But the thing is, I still was depressed, but because the alter ego stepped in, I didn't realize I was depressed.
You put a band-aid on it. Is it? They talk about putting a band-aid on top of the wound.
Exactly. It was a band-aid. So many years I was doing this, living this lifestyle. And it wasn't until I started working in the secondary school, and then I saw young people coming into my office. Remember, now I'm in secondary school, and young people coming into my office displaying mental health systems, mental health traits as well, and then telling their story, and their story resembled my story. And then that's when I had to say, you need to do some work on yourself, Courtney. So one of the key things I did at that time, you know, was I had to start doing the work on myself. So first thing I had to do though was to go back to my children's mums and apologize for not being there, because what I had done is compared myself to my dad. I said, well, actually, I don't beat up my children's mum, because I witnessed that as a child, domestic abuse. Actually, I've got no mental health issues, when actually I did have, but I didn't recognize it. Because like I said, yeah. So I went back and apologized to my children's mums, and then I said, bring my sons. So at the age of 22 and 18, and this time, you know, it was two different women. My 22-year-old, I apologized to him after I apologized to his mum, and he was angry with me. Yeah, but the 18-year-old was really angry. When he turned 18, he had his mum's name tattooed on his arm. And, you know, he was like, this is my dad, you're what? He was spitting anger. And, you know, I just had to acknowledge it and go on a journey with them. And pretty much 12 months later of apologizing to their mums and themselves, those two boys came to live with me at the age of 22 and 18. Live with me. At this time now, I had a wife and their two brothers. And that's what took me on the journey of Father to Father and creating the organization Father to Father. But the struggle didn't stop then. Because then my next bout of mental health was when I witnessed a white male head teacher pinning down my 6-year-old son to the floor like an animal. I actually walked into the school and saw this head teacher had my son on the floor. And this was off the back of how many, at the time, killings of young Black boys at the hands of the police. So I literally visualized. I remember when I saw that, I got my son out of that school. But then I remember, I was in my kitchen washing the dishes, and I closed my eyes and I visualized that head teacher pinning down my son, but then I visualized all those other boys that had died at the hands of police because of they saying they're restraining them. Okay. And I just shouted out in my kitchen. I just went, ah! And that's when I knew I needed to go and get help again. And so it was at that time I signed myself off work, went counseling and got talking therapy to work through that. What I found out now is that I was still holding on to my childhood trauma.
Yes.
Because what the counselor said to me that from the time I saw the head teacher pinning down my 6-year-old son to me getting my son out of that school was 8 weeks. And it was a traumatic experience. But your son's safe now. So why are you still holding on to it, Courtney? And she said, I urge you to continue that. Actually, no, she said, I urge you to consider that it's not your son you're thinking about, it's the child in you.
Your inner child, yes.
That's still hurting, and the child that wasn't heard and what you witnessed. And I just started crying. And then that's when I started doing the work on myself in terms of healing myself, finding forgiveness for my father, understanding his own journey and his own trauma as well. And that's brought me to here now in terms of actually how can I support men out here to deal with their own childhood traumas, talk about it, and let's go on that journey together. I've been on that journey, you know, and I know by being, as I said before, being vulnerable, authentic, and transparent, and that's what I use the movie for, to start those discussions. You know, there's so much greatness in our community and so much great things we can talk about, which is great, but there's also things that we need to talk about that we don't talk about.
Absolutely.
We don't talk about, and that's what I use my movie for, to start those discussions, to start the healing within our community. And we've actually got something happening. Omar has an event for Mental Health Week. We actually got a title that is the family will heal, because it's about the whole family. It was
absolutely.
It was about my mother, it was about my father, and it was about me as a child. Why all of us, it has to be the family will heal. So that's how that's where I've come from. That was my lived experiences and so forth that I would like to share.
Thank you, and I just want to ask a couple of questions, Courtney. You know, how did you? Okay, you recognized that you needed support and help. So was there someone that gave you the guidance to make that step, or did you make that step yourself? Because you know they often say with men, it's often hard or difficult for whatever reason for them to make that step to reach.
So in the two different episodes, so the depression, it was a realization that actually I'm walking around in this school as a role model.
Okay.
Yeah. And these young black boys and girls are looking at me, but actually you're a hypocrite. Well, in my mind, I was saying you're a hypocrite. So I needed to go back and repair that harm. And because remember, like I said, while I was when I didn't have nobody to help me out with depression, it was the alter ego that stepped in.
Too sweet.
Yeah.
You have the walls. Sorry. Everything.
You know? So it wasn't until I started working in the school and then those young people came to me, I was like, hold on a minute. You've not dealt with this. You need to deal with
reflection, the mirror.
The reflection, the mirror. So that was the first case. In terms of the second case, when I say it's the anxiety I had after witnessing the head teacher pin down my 6-year-old son, it was a good friend of the family. He came to my house, and this is what it was. I was trying to control everything. I didn't trust anybody, you know, because I was beating up myself as well. Because I was like, how could I allow this white head teacher to pin down my son, and I didn't even do him nothing? Like, if this was Courtney of the past, you wouldn't have been talking to me. So there was a lot of guilt in me, that how guilt and shame and blaming myself that was going on. And it wasn't, so I thought, yeah, I had to control it. I had to move my son out of that school. I didn't want nobody. Next thing, I definitely didn't want any, at that time, I didn't want, no support from any white person or anything. Yeah. So I was going through this trauma. I wasn't bathing. I wasn't, I was just a wreck. And then one of my good friends called me up and came round to my house, and he sat me and my wife down, and he said to my wife, tell your husband what you've seen going on. And my wife said, he gets up at 3 o'clock in the night. I hear him going downstairs, crying downstairs.
Wow.
Yeah. So I thought I was hiding everything. I thought I was controlling everything, but I didn't know my wife had witnessed all these things. He's irritable. He snapped at us. And it wasn't until he had my wife tell me what she was seeing that I just broke down crying. Because I didn't think my family had seen it. I didn't think I was displaying that behavior. And so it was then that I knew I could go and get help as well, start that journey.
Wow. You see, these, you know, all of these stories, because in part one, they shared some really deep stuff, and we're continuing that conversation. And I'm hoping that anyone who's listening to anything that they're hearing on this platform, they can resonate maybe with your story, with Kwame's story, with David's story, or with Dante's story. But once they resonate with that, they can see how you took action and what they can do with their lives if they are feeling in that place. Because I think what a lot of people would probably agree with you on is the feeling that nobody sees.
Yeah.
Because you're not seeing yourself. So if you're not seeing yourself in terms of where you're really at, then you don't feel somebody else can really see you. And all the time your wife was the witness. And in the same place, sitting down in the same environment, and he's asking your wife in front of you, that's a really powerful, that's a scenario.
Yeah. And then I think the other thing was also is then when she was saying how my sons are feeling about. Yeah, because remember, I didn't want to become that person, because in my mind, I'm not going to become like my father. I'm not going to become like my father. But what I was doing was becoming more and more like him, because I wasn't sharing the burden. I was trying to control everything. So that was like, no, I want to have that relationship with my son. I want to be that father that they can come and talk to. I wanted to be that father that could show emotions and show everything, but I wasn't doing that at the time because I wasn't opening up. I wasn't being vulnerable. I wasn't being authentic or transparent and looking for the, you know, they say it takes a village, the support of the village, you know.
Yes, it takes a village not to raise a child, it takes a village to raise the village. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And I'm looking forward to seeing your documentary. I mean, that was just a clip. But I'm looking forward to seeing the full documentary because I've heard about it. And I've seen what it's done to people, because I sort of witnessed the tail end of it. And so I'm looking forward to being in the room to watch that. So Courtney, thank you very much. Courtney Brown from Father to Father. You can check out his work, fathertofather.co.uk. And if you are in a place, get in touch, because he's doing some incredible work. Thank you. Thank you. Now I'd like to just welcome David and Dante. Excuse me. Thank you both so much. I know that you are busy guys as well, but thank you for taking the time. It's a real privilege. And, you know, hopefully we will hear your stories as well. And this, you know, I've had such really good feedback about this podcast, and, you know, people are urging me to do more and to do bigger with it, which is brilliant. So as we say, watch this space, because when I put my mind to something, trust me, well, Kwame knows, it's going to be done. It's done. And whatever it takes, you know, it's what it takes. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to play a little promo video, because I've sussed out how to do promos. In the last one, in part one, I had to get Gerald. I was trying to encourage Gerald Olsen to sing, as I couldn't suss out how to do the little promo. I'm about to get David and Dante to sing if this doesn't work, but hold on. Yay. On the Sofa with Esther, in the series Men Supporting Men, on the last Wednesday of every month at 8 o'clock GMT, is now sponsored by Father to Father, turning the hearts of the fathers to their children and the hearts of the children to their fathers. Just to die. Thought you were bulletproof. Look at you. What happened? Did she hurt you? Are you okay? Okay, did it. Yeah.
You know, Esther, I thought you were going to play no more. I honestly thought you were going to play no more. yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're going to play the guys who want to obviously not, but anyway.
I might be able to pull it up. Before the end of the show. But yes, well, ladies and gents, you're listening to On the Sofa with Esther in the series Men Supporting Men, where in this particular segment, part 2 is called His Story. And these gentlemen have offered to share some of those deeply powerful but painful moments. And what was the realization that they were in that painful place, and what did they do to overcome, to deal with, to heal? So who am I going to pick on next? So I'm going to leave you till last, I think. I'm going to pick on Dante. And then we're going to go for David, because I know, time-wise and stuff. So Dante, you need to take yourself off the, you're on mute.
Hey.
Yes, good day to you, sir. I know it's 3:30 there. I know the time zones does my head in as well. So thank you very much for joining us.
It's okay. Hello. Lady Love, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Busy, busy, productive, crazy. I mean, it just, things seem to be spiraling at the moment, but also things are opening up. So, and I had to do double my workout this morning because I got a text about something. I'm like, shh. Did it for 20 minutes. So I'm
Nice.
good. So,
Nice.
Dante, so thank you for joining us. And as you know, the process of this is to share one of those moments when you were literally on your knees. What did that feel like? And then how did you cross the bridge to a realization that something needed to be done, or you needed to do some work on self to come through?
I had quite a few of those moments. I would say, if I could just pick one, not nothing too deep. Losing a close friend. We were out doing rough ends. It actually was going really good. A good friend of ours, a guy named Tycoon. It was, the reason why I say this moment is because it was really one of those moments that like hit you out the blue. You can have a moment when it's like, somebody is sick, but it's like a gradual thing. This person was just taken away from us, This was a good friend of ours named Tycoon Gregory Gale. We called him the Diamond Man. He used to come through with diamonds, like watches and different. He would just pop up. He was a really bright character person, like loud. He looked like a lighter version of James Evans off of Good Times.
Okay.
That's what we used to call him all the time. Like, he used to just come around and he always wanted to make us look good. That's one thing I loved about Tycoon. He loved us. Hey man, try this on. Put these VVS's on. These flawless diamonds. Oh, that look good on. Yeah, put that on. You gonna look good on that. Oh, y'all gonna be on TV today? Oh, I'll be right there. He pull up. He pushing his way through people. I'm with rough ends. I'm with them. He coming. So, make a long story short, we had basically got a call and said that he was murdered. And it was like, it happened like 2 days ago. They didn't know. They just found out the day they had told us about it. And it was like, I don't know. It was like, I grew up in Baltimore's a lot of craziness here. Like, Baltimore, unlike the States, we have guns. We have a lot of them everywhere. So we were averaging still about 350 murders a year. So, but for me, it was like, this was somebody that was around a lot. I used to see a lot, especially doing music, especially coming back and forth to New York a lot. And it was one of those things that really hit me hard, and just made me reevaluate my life. Like, what did I really want? Like, what was I going? Like how real or how beneficial was the relationships in my life at the time? Like, it's like after that moment, I was looking to have a more meaningful, more purposeful structure around me as far as people I dealt with. Like, I just ain't had time for no like fake friends type of situation. It would have been too much for me at the moment because I was just emotional. Like most men don't want to admit about their emotions because we were raised not to show your emotions. Don't show your pain, hurt, don't cry in front of them and all that.
Be a man.
Man, listen, that's creating a ticking time bomb. You know, I always wanted to try to stay in touch with my emotions as well as in control of them because I know that's one of the things, just observing my city. I know that's one of the things we suffer from. A bunch of emotional men that's too proud to say they're emotional, so they act out different ways, and it shows up as crime. It shows up as crime in our city, you know, unfortunately. But for me, my advice, just speaking from the mental health aspect, speaking from the aspect of being an artist, that it's like you always got people looking at you.
Yes.
The average person can go off and I feel like they can go through the motions and hurt and do whatever. I feel like a lot of artists don't have that luxury because at some point, at some level, because of who you are, you got somebody that's looking at you or paying attention to you, whatever the case is. Like, you know, so that's like another ticking time bomb situation, whereas though you're holding everything in, you're not venting, you're not getting it out, you're not handling the situation, you're just dealing with it. Dealing with something and handling it is two different things.
Yes.
For me, I realized I was just dealing with a lot of stuff and not really handling it, and it was building up. So I had more road rage, I had shorter patience. Like it was one of those moments when I had to stop and really think like, bro, you're not good right now. You're not all right. You got some healing you need to do. You got some things you need to handle instead of just dealing with it and get your head back together. So I would say the best way for me was to look within. Like all the answers came from within. Started with me. Like, you know, I couldn't go around it. So the best way to get to handle something is to go through it. And I try to get around it. Don't sweep it off to the side. I had to really confront what I was feeling. I had to really confront my pain and, you know, stuff that might have been hurting me along with the situation at the same time. So, I mean, as much as we don't want to as men, as much as we don't want to deal with a lot of those things, those are a lot of the situations that's holding us back. I'm still dealing with, I'm still fixing stuff in my life and my mind and my perspective on how life and how I deal with things. So it's work. Let me just say it's work, and no man listening to this, no person listening to this is not alone. Like we all have work to do. And the people that you think got it together are probably the ones that need the most work.
Yes. Yeah. A bit like what Courtney shared, isn't it? He went into this alter ego. So, you know, walking around as Courtney Too Sweet, and everybody's thinking, yeah, you got the money, you got the girls, you got the look, but behind that he was crumbling. And if I may, Dante asked, I mean, was there someone that also showed you, guided you? Because you know, sometimes when you're in those dark spaces, you may watch the TV and you see yourself there. You may read something. It's almost like that's how I'm feeling. Was there somebody or something that happened where you actually realized I need to go within myself, or did you have that aha moment yourself?
Definitely, I had a few of them. I'll say that again. One of my moments, I just broke down in tears because I realized I saved myself. That's a realization that a lot of us have. I'm not going to say a lot of us. I'm going to say I pray that a lot of us have and a lot of us had, because it's the moment that makes you change your trajectory in life. I realized the people that I was looking up to wasn't the people that was going to get me where I needed to be or where I wanted to go in life. It was leading down the wrong places and, you know, some bad places. So when I realized, like, bruh, like the people you look up to, you're looking to for approval, they might be in jail or might not even be here, or like, you got to fix it. When I realized that, it broke me down, because I was thinking to myself, like, I could have lived the rest of my life like this. I could have lived the rest of my existence in this destructive mindset, basically. So for me, it was definitely quite a few people. Like David was one of those people. Certain people in my family, certain loved ones, school counselor. I got close with the school counselor. I graduated high school in like 2 years because the school counselor she seen that I was an intelligent young man. I was just caught up in the streets. She seen it, so she really to sit me down. Shout out to Miss Mason. She should sit me down and talk to me like, I know you can do it. I see you distracted, and I know it's hard to break away from things that you're living around all the time. I know school only happens a certain amount of hours, and then it's back to your real life. So it's people like that are the real heroes in our lives that might not even know it at the time, how big of an inspiration, how big of a push they're giving us, but they'll take them couple moments. I'm talking about addicts. Some people were addicts. I mean, straight up addicts. I mean, when they were talking to me, they would probably nod out, but they they was dropping jewels on me like, listen, man, listen, you can't be like this. You ain't like them.
They saw.
You gotta get from. And in my mind, I'm like, am I living a movie? Like it's just like a movie. Like it's like a movie. I got the addict from around the neighborhood telling me not to be on these corners, you know? So for me, that was like an aha moment. Like, you know, your jewels and your messages ain't gonna come from the most perfect place all the time. But you gotta be open enough to receive it, to see it, to ears open enough to listen, to say, you know what, you're right. That makes sense. I need to get my together. So yeah.
Excellent. And you just said something key there that, you know, the jewels that you need to hear might not always come from the perfect places. And oftentimes there those people who are so wounded who know that they're not going to ever change. They would give you that word of advice because they want that for you. What they can't do or be, they see it in you and they want you to be that. So they're able to deliver that, even though they know that they're always going to be in a certain place. So that's really powerful. And there is one last question. And, you know, as a musician then, because, you know, there's a different set of pressures around that as well. But then has the music been part of your healing and your process as well?
Oh man, most definitely. Music was that one thing from young I turned to and just go in my own world. Like sometimes you want to just shut the world out so you could be alone with your thoughts, with your, you know, with your creativity, whatever the case is. And a lot of times for musicians, I know a lot of people's stories are similar when it comes to music. It's definitely the great escape. Music is the great escape, literally. Like, I mean, we had a show one year with Ruth Scola. Ruth Scola's one of the members of Drew Hill. This was before we came out big and before Ruth Scola came out big. He was a solo artist. And he had a song out called Let's Get Personal. It was big on the radio, all in Baltimore, the DMV area. And there was a big convention came to town called For Sisters Only. You know, sponsored by women, ran by women, and a bunch of different speakers, Sister Soldier, all of these different people were there. I thought there was a few famous people on the bill that day. Was Destiny Child there? Was they out at the time? No, I don't know. I know it was a couple big acts on. But anyway, long short, we had everything planned. We were rehearsing all day, every day. The day before the show, I get food poisoning.
Oh wow.
Bad. Like I was in pain, like bad. Like nothing was happening, nothing was moving out either end. It was just stuck in the middle, hurting, going crazy. Literally before the show, I remember being in the hotel room, we getting ready, stomach still hurting. Right before we got on stage, all of the pain subsided. It went away like, almost like I took a magic pill. And it was the adrenaline, it was the moment. Sold out, wall-to-wall women screaming. Like, one of the first big experiences that me and Dave had on stage, like in front of that many people. And we was just singing background, doing background steps, but I still know the power of that energy that comes from performing, creating music, is amazing. I definitely feel like it's a godsend for us as little humans on this planet. You know.
Brilliant. And that's the power of music, as Courtney well knows as well, music and mental health. There's a power there, because the music touches each and every emotion. And sometimes when we don't have the capacity to reach into places ourselves, we could just sit and listen, and it does something. So thank you. Well, you see, ladies and gents, hope you're being inspired this evening. We've had two sort of really powerful sharings. That word is a word now anyway, two powerful sharings. And we're now going to go over to another, just a very brief break. So I've learned how to do this sharing videos thingy bobby. And when we come back, I'm going to go over to David for him to, give us an insight into his most deep and powerful moments, those emotional moments that bring us to our knees, but also what is it that makes us rise. So you're listening to On the Sofa with Esther in the Men Supporting Men series, part 2, His Story. See you on the other side. Ladies and gentlemen, an exciting announcement at Turning Point, your lifestyle, your wellbeing magazine. The spring issue themed A Woman's Tenacity, Stepping Stones to Success. We have front cover exclusive with Carolyn Griffey and Carrie Lucas, and we'll also be featuring their dynamic team of women, Jessie Sang, Dina R. Andrews and Sonia Damlin, as we discover more about Solar Records as the legacy continues, along with other incredible features and articles by some amazing individuals. More about that coming soon. Gosh, this is like a little bit of a toy for me, isn't it? I can do all these different things now. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to On the Sofa with Esther in the series Men Supporting Men, part 2, His Story. And in this particular segment, I'm talking to these incredible gentlemen who are sharing an aspect of their life where they've been rock bottom and how they rose. So my next speaker is going to be David. David, you're on mute, by the way. Yes, David, thank you so much for joining the platform again. It's a real pleasure to have all of you here today. And so I'm going to shut up and let you talk and just find out, what's your story, share an aspect of your life.
So can you just give me the question one more time? Because I came in kind of in the middle.
Yes.
And ain't really quite.
That's okay. What we're doing, we're getting each of yourselves are sharing one point in your life where you were on your knees, where you were rock bottom, and what did that feel like, and how did you get out of that place? How did you overcome? What were the steps that you took to make things different, make things better?
Rock bottom. I had a couple of those moments. I mean, I could speak of so many things. I'm just trying to think of where to go. I can just go recently, I had lost, at this time I lost my mom at this point. I'd already lost my father, which I never healed from. And then I lost my mom, and then it was like family kind of like, being the youngest of 10 brothers and sisters.
Wow.
Like outs with the family kind of a situation, separated, kind of like, you know, not divorced, but, you know, we not, you know, not to living together no more. It was just, you know, at the time I was thinking of, you know, not of divorce, you know what I mean? There was a lot of transition and uncertainty. And it's something about when the covering leaves you, meaning your parents. You know, it's something about when you're used to having like a parent above you, and there's a subconscious level of security that's there. When it's gone, you don't realize it until I didn't realize it until it was gone. You know what I mean? Both of them were gone. You know what I mean? And it and then, you know, in my 40s, like I'm now getting a lot of these realizations. You know, there's a lot of stuff. Just it's like a big old traffic jam of things. Like a big old gumbo soup of stuff festering. You know what I mean? So it's a lot was going on, but you know, all I could say is God. You know what I mean? That's all I could say. Because I'm a firm believer God gives you, you know, what you need, you know, and what was already in me was an answer, was a way, was a door, you know, and all I had to do was go through that door, and that led to another door that led to another door. And I was able to basically get back to the light at the end of the tunnel, you know.
Okay.
But getting to that, before you even get to all of that, you know, you know, I was feeling all kinds of emotions, you know, of things I've never felt before, especially as a grown man. You know what I mean? So it's, you know, what we're talking about is something, you know, we've all been to school, but this is a school most people haven't been. There's no class in this kind of stuff. And I mean, they are, but it's not like you have to seek them out. You know, it's usually you find out about them right now. You know what I mean? Like, you know, when there's a problem, you were like, oh, I need some help. And then they were like, get you a counselor or somebody. But it would be nice if we all was taught this, that we grew up the right way, you know, okay, let's think the right way. But, you know, we learn this stuff as it goes, like parenting, you know, you just not, here it comes, you know what I mean? You got to figure out how to
jump in, yes.
And we make it, you know, we end up figuring it out. But so it's been that, man, like a lot of the men on here are saying, you know, learning, you know, just back in school, but in another school, you know, and learning my emotions, learning who I am, and realigning myself, you know, calibrating myself, because, you know, sometimes you can lose yourself, you know, you can straight lose yourself, you know, you from influences, from wanting to be this, especially being in this industry.
Yes.
You know, it's definitely you can get lost easily. So God has a way of definitely putting the right people in your life, you know. I think because I grew up seeing change, you know, having a father that was a pastor, and not the fact that he was a pastor, because that's, to me, no disrespect, but it's a lot of pastors living crazy, you know what I mean? But my father was a man that had one woman and was a just man. He had a clean life. And he backed it up with that. He wasn't perfect. You know, he got upset, but he came and apologized, you know what I mean? You know, if he stumped your toe, he said sorry, you know what I mean? But he was the most loving man, most caring man, but he did it a different way. You know, he wasn't caring with a lot of words. He just would do stuff for you, you know, cook for you, you know what I mean? Clean, that kind of person. So I had that example, but I've seen change. I grew up seeing change, you know, he's like my big brother now, a guy named Stanley Watts, you know, he was getting the high, like was on like like the streets, the drugs that's in Baltimore. I don't know if y'all know about the heroin and the crack cocaine, all that stuff that was hitting DC, Baltimore. But he came to my house, man, and my dad prayed for him. And in that moment, years later, he's now married with 4 kids, 4 daughters, and has never touched another drug from just belief. What the power of what belief can do, what faith. And so it's about aligning, fixing our mindset. Because it's so what I realize, we all are born, when we come into this world, we don't realize where we are. Like, I didn't realize I was in the hood. You know what I mean? When we were growing up as kids, we don't realize, like, we were flipping on pissy mattresses right in the alley, right into my back of my alley. Right, like a couple things, like houses, alleys up, like somebody's backyard. There was couple empty houses, and it was like a mattresses, and we used to have like WWF matches back in the day. We used to take cardboard, what you would call it, and make fake belts with the aluminum foil on it. We used to write, world champion, heavyweight championship. And, we used to have a blast, looking back now. When I go back in the same neighborhood, I'm looking like, oh my God. Yes, I saw the rats when I was young. Yes, I saw thing, but it just didn't seem as dirty as it was. Sometimes you don't know what you are when you're born in it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes.
You don't know. And it's not till 40 years later, you're like, oh my God. You know what I mean? It's like that movie that, the movie that starts out with, you got your handler and he, welcomes you into the fold, and you know what I mean? And he teaches you the way. Come to find out at the end, your handler is the one that killed your father, that kind of thing. Kind of like that, like, what in the world? You know what I mean? Same thing with, with America, with everything that was going on with Freddie Gray and all of the things that's been happening with our people. Growing up, I knew it was some stuff going on, but I had no idea to the level. And it is, all of this again is an intersection of emotions that we got to deal with as men, and that's why I think this is so important, this platform, and men having these conversations, talking about it, because I realized my dad loved me, after he passed away, you know what I mean? Because he was, I didn't realize his emotions, because he really didn't show a lot of emotions, you know what I mean? But he loved, See, it was my understanding of love. My understanding as a child was I wanted you to, I wanted to be like how these other kids with they father, you know what I mean? They was all hugged up. He about to, he got them on somewhere, King's Dominion, you know what I mean? But my dad was, trying to get me to understand these commandments, you know what I mean? He was drilling what he believed was one of the most important things. And that is which is what I was able to hold on to later when I really needed it to help fix me and help change my life, and something that to hold on to as a bedrock, so this is the school of learning who you are is a never-ending school, and understand mind, I think, is so important. Like this mind is a computer, and understanding how it functions, and understanding that you can change it. And I am not my mind. You know what I mean? The thinking that's happening in here was programmed, you know what I mean? And it could be unprogrammed, and you can reprogram it. And when you understand these things, and, this is stuff I had to learn. This is how, as now an adult, these are the tools that I can use to help transform my life and help uproot some of that weed that was not helping and not serving my life and not doing me any good. Help sabotaging all my money, you know what I mean? Help sabotaging all my relationships, whatever it is, you know what I mean? But most people don't have these tools. and most people aren't having these conversations. That's why this is so important. So I don't even know where to go, but hopefully I shared something that was important and helpful.
You have indeed. You shared quite a lot. There was quite a lot in there. And, you know, I'm just really getting a sense that we've got to do a conference around this where you guys have more time to share, but then where we can have that real interaction with others and bring people into, allow them to come into this safe space where they can share and then walk away with tools. You talked about tools, to walk away with the tools.
And your takeaways. I like to call it takeaways.
More takeaways, yes. Well, Chinese or Indian, anyway. But or grits. I'm going to keep on about my grits. You know me, I love my grits, right? But yeah, a conference is in the making because
I think that'll be.
Yeah.
And what to help with that? I mean, these are the conversations that needs to be had. It's conversations. It's, you know, words are very, very powerful.
Absolutely.
You either, you know what, and it's the conversation that you have in your mind is very, very powerful. So that's why this conversation is so important, because it can unlock people's, you know, barriers that they holding on themselves, because we all got the keys, but we're not using them. You know what I mean? We just walking on, we all have a mind, and that mind is the key. God has blessed us with that, but you know, we're stuck, and I know I have been, and I'm still trying to be unstuck. So thank you, because some of these conversations I've heard on here is helping me to keep, you know, with the being unstuck, you know what I mean, and unwrapping the dysfunction so that we could, you know,
be your best. Be your best.
Exactly.
Can I just come in there, you know, Esther, because there's, you know, I put in the chat group, pain, process, positioning, power, and purpose. And that's what I heard there, you know, in terms of, and I know the good work says, you know, it's good to be afflicted, but you don't think it's good to be afflicted at a time until you start that process.
Mm-hmm.
And that process means starting to work on yourself and finding out that actually you have the strength in to overcome. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the Father's got you. And then you realize that once you've gone through that process, it positions you of understanding yourself. But guess what? It also then positions you with power, because it says knowledge is power. But it's most powerful if you implement it.
That's right, what you do.
Which then becomes your purpose and how you go back and help others. And I just, you know, the other two is obviously prayer and praise. You know, and so that's what I picked up on that, you know, in terms of when I've heard of, I know Kwame's story, but when I listen to our story, you know, loss and pain and everything, for me, it's the Father Almighty just positioning us to be able to reach out to others, and we're beacons of hope.
Yes,
indeed.
So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. And just on from that, beacons of hope, but also you talked about having the tools, because you've found your tools and you've learned to use them. That is an invaluable information that you can pass on to others. You said, you know, this is powerful, it's powerful, but then people say, well, how do we get out of this? Or what do we get out of this more so?
Right.
So yeah, and that's why for one of the sessions, I'm going to have some practitioners on who are going to talk about those processes and the processes that they use, you know, from psychologists to different people who have therapists that offer different modalities, so that people know there is a choice out there, and there may be a choice, whatever choice you choose. If this resonates with you, you might want to do cognitive behavioral therapy. You might want to see, but there is choice. And that's why even during the conference, for you guys sitting there sharing on a one-to-one in your own personal groups, that's going to be powerful as well. So thank you. Okay. Right. So last but not least, I've got one last promo, but it's I've got one last promo, so I've got to do this. I just love playing around with promos today, so you just got to bear with me. We have Kwame coming up.
Good afternoon. My name is Tony Jazz. I'm a lifestyle manager and also a professional butler to one of the richest and wealthiest celebrities around the world. One of the services that I provide is a personal shopping experience here in London. And some of the things that we do, apart from shopping, is that I take you to places like this, which is just called Japan House, where you can learn all about Japanese culture, and we're going to have an afternoon tea Japanese experience.
Okay, so that is something that's offered in London, a bespoke afternoon out in bespoke places. So last but not least in the conversation, men supporting men, his story part 2, we have Kwame McPherson. And Kwame is really well known on the circuit for sharing his story because he's an author, entrepreneur, he's an entrepreneur, a wordsmith, and many other things. But he's written a book called My Date with Depression, where he really, really organically and honestly shares about his journey. And it's quite a powerful journey as well. So without further ado, Kwame, over to you.
Thank you. You know, I'm still expecting to see Ruffin's video, right? No more. You put all these promos.
They might have to put it up.
You know what I mean? Put all these promos. You know, but anyway. No, it's
guys, can you pull it up? You might have to pull it up on your
Yeah. Pull it up, baby. Let's go.
I'm going to come off the video and I'm going to let you speak as I find the video that you want. Wow.
Yeah, that's me, but you know, we have them here, so you put no promos, you might have to put on their video. But anyway, no, it's been really powerful, and the thing that's occurred to me is the story. So as you said, I'm a storyteller, and story is pivotal to us continuing traditions, continuing legacies, enabling people to learn from the mistakes or the journeys and experiences that we've been on, right? And the thing what jumped out for me is all of our stories are similar, even mine, you know, and that's the thing about it, is that we've had the same path of roads that we walked on, and we've ultimately ended up in the same place. You know what I mean? Even though they're different roads. So my experience of being in that particular place was based on, similar to Courtney in a sense, whereby, you know what I mean, I was doing a lot of stuff in terms of starting businesses with partners, being involved with a lot of things. And even though I was doing a lot of that, it wasn't a true me. And Courtney touched on it when he was actually wearing a mask when he was Courtney Too Sweet. And that was the same thing I was doing, but I was only doing it in the sphere of like I said, doing a lot of businesses, a lot of entrepreneurial stuff, but they weren't successful. I wasn't successful at it. Even though I was doing them, and I was wearing this mask around it, but I didn't know that at the time. And I guess in our lives, we get to an ultimate point where everything comes to a head. So all the stuff that you've been through, that was almost like having an epiphany. It's a time in your life where you have to deal with stuff that you never dealt with before, you know? And that happened with me in my experience when I was living in North America. And ultimately, I got a lot of money, got a lot of cash, did a lot of investing, you know, a lot of properties and stuff like that, and businesses. And ultimately, because I wasn't my true self, everything crashed.
Mm.
Everything crashed, and in that crashing, all the stuff that I carried for years actually revealed itself. So, for example, childhood trauma, as Courtney touched on, you know what I mean, and even David and Davante, is that there was some sort of trauma or something that came back that was there from. It's almost like it was sleeping, something that was latent, and it came back because of the other stuff that was happening at the time. So it's so what I was going through, invariably revealed all the stuff that I was carrying, which was the childhood trauma.
One moment, Kwame. I just want to say there are people listening. Thaddeus Cradle Senior says greetings all. Shauna Hall Williams says yes, that's the one who sees it. Hello everyone. Another message is you must be ready, open to embrace the message, and not from where you expect it or who gives you the message. So there's a couple of people who are listening.
Wonderful.
For those messages. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to read an excerpt from my book because it tells it in collective. I'm a writer, and I love to share through my stories. And
it's a powerful book as well.
Yeah. Thank you. It is, and this is a chapter called "Wading Through the Wilderness." I was scared. The impact of watching my fledgling empire crumble about me was hard to take. The business went under. My property disappeared. What made it worse was that I could not face the other people who had believed in me and invested in me. The calls began, and I chose to hide from all and sundry, refusing to take them. You know, the ones from creditors and the trusted partners I brought into one business. I felt like that there was absolutely nothing I could possibly do, and with no answers, huge debt, and a failing relationship hanging over my head, I was speeding to oblivion. So that is when I started to go into that space of, and even Courtney had touched on it too in terms of his own journey, and it was in that space when I was in it, that again, like Courtney, where, you know, I didn't want to talk to anyone. I would go for long walks, talking to myself. I would be shut away in my room, and that kind of thing. And and on reflection, I didn't know what I was going through. It was, and how I came out of it is one of the questions that you asked eloquently.
Yes.
Esther, was who actually helped me, and actually it was my cousin who saw my abnormal behavior. You know what I mean? And I think I also wrote a part of it. Here it is. So this is also in Wading the Wilderness, I think. And so that's another excerpt. So the answer seemed elusive, like a cat chasing a dark spot on a blank white wall. After losing everything I had ever dreamt of, including the goal of becoming a true, fully fledged entrepreneur, I felt like an abject failure. I knew I needed to find employment, and that was hard to do. After all, I had made a commitment to be all I knew I could be, but here I was failing at the first hurdle. But then my cousin entered the frame, and for that I love her for life. She was witnessing my uncommon behavior and gradual downfall. I was the one who spoke to me in no uncertain terms. One day, she just asked me a few questions. Who are you? What are you doing and why? When you first came to North America, you were not like this. What happened? Wow. It was enough for me to ponder, and something snapped within me. I began to turn my life around. I asked the questions. And even when Davante was sharing that there was a couple of episodes that he had, that was my major episode, but I still had more. And I had to work through those. And it was the help of others who identified those things within me, one of which was referring me to a counselor. Again, like Courtney was saying. And it was and it was because I did a lot of work on myself. You know what I mean? Especially when my cousin identified that. I started doing a lot of personal development, started reading the books. Music, Sound of Blackness, is always close to my heart. Every single song that Sound of Blackness sang, that was what helped me through that period, you know? And even though I did the work, there was still stuff that was still latent. There was still stuff that I hadn't dealt with. And one of those things was the inability to communicate or to run away from confrontation. Whereas my brother and I, because I grew up in an abusive household to a great extent, I witnessed my father being violent to my mother and the fight, and she leaving, and eventually they get divorced. And it wasn't until I was in a relationship, and even though I had done work on myself, there was still stuff, like I said, that was coming up. And I was, and I just couldn't understand what more there was, because I, I'm thinking that, yeah, I'm perfect now, I've done all the work, and but when it came to stressful and emotional stress and incident or issue or matter, I tend to run away because I didn't want to deal with the confrontation. I didn't want to deal with what needs to be dealt with. When actual fact, all it would mean is standing in your own truth and speaking your truth. That's all it took. That's all it did. But I was afraid of that, you know, and afraid of the hurt that would cause the rejection, you know. And then it's only through the counseling now I realized why. And when I went to the counselor and I sat down in the very first session, because all the time, because I didn't grow with my mother, because my mother left when I was about 6 or 7, that's when I divorced, and I grew with my father. My simplified thinking was, there was no female energy in the house because my father didn't remarry. You know, he had a couple of girlfriends and stuff like that. But for me, there was no female energy within the house. So I'm saying, you know, there's an imbalance. I've got a lot of male testosterone and no female emotional vulnerabilities and stuff like that. So anyway, so in the session with the counselor now, I'm saying, yeah, you know, so no, I didn't grow with my mom, so I'm thinking that, yeah, you know, that female energy is missing. And all she did was ask me one question. She said, who did you grow with? That's what she said. And it's like, my father. And she said, so really you're modeling yourself on your father, not the fact that you're missing your mother.
Wow.
And that's when the penny dropped. You know what I mean? And I started to reflect and realize that growing up, I was behaving like my father, like Courtney had said. You know what I mean? I was modeling my father unconsciously, because all this time I'm thinking, mom's not around, so there's no woman in the house. So, but it was never that. I was modeling my father. So in the end, I was able to to have a discussion with my father, you know, and I said to him what I remembered in regard to growing up. And I told him that I loved him. And this was about July 2011, and by September he had passed away.
Oh, you said yes. You released it.
Yeah, but I was glad to have had the conversation with him to let him realize what I remember in terms of my childhood trauma, coming to terms with that, and realizing how it impacted me along the way, you know, in terms of growing up, becoming a young adult and an adult. And it all, like I said, it all culminated. It all began with me going into that place of having a depression, you know. But it was also that time I was able to reflect and look back and the help of others around me to get through that period of my life. And now I am living in purpose. And now I'm living in terms of what I love doing. And now I'm sharing my story and giving other people permission, other men actually permission to share their story. Because as David highlighted, having forums like this enables others to have that permission to talk about their own journey, you know. And like I said, if you notice, all of our stories are similar to a great extent. It's just that we didn't have the permission to be vulnerable with them and emotional with them, you know. So yeah, so that's me in a nutshell. And it's in my book, My Date with Depression, which is available on Amazon. From mental uncertainty to self-fulfillment. If anyone really wants to, I had to document my story because I've never written anything about me, and that was a part of my journey. But
you've got to get the books, please. Yeah, thank you so much. And you know, this has been really powerful because I know there's so much more that we can unpick from this. And I'm going to sort of do another 5 minutes, if I may, gentlemen, because there's a couple of questions that I want to just ask all of you. Is for those people who you've had experiences with that have really negatively impacted your life, how many of you have had the opportunity to go up and say, you know, they talk about forgiveness. How does it feel? How has it feel for you to have asked someone, you know, gone up to someone and said, this is what's happened, and they've denied it? What do you do with that? Where do you take that? And I asked that because, Kwame, you shared something about even with your father. I think it was you with your father. He didn't recognize what he did. And I think I asked you, so what did you do with that? Because sometimes when we go to people, we want them to acknowledge, and sometimes they're not going to acknowledge. So where do you take that space? Where do you take that energy?
Yeah, well, and like you said, you brought up and when I did say to him that I remember this happening, I remember you being this way to mom, and he said to me that it's a move that I remembered. You know, I will never forget that as long as I live. He said it was a movie I remembered, and that's what I had in my memory. I said, no, Dad, I remember what I saw, but that doesn't mean I love you any less. Because you grew up in a time when and in a culture where these things were the norm. You know what I mean? I said, so for me, I said, I understand that. I understand why you were the way you were. I understand you weren't, you know, you wouldn't hug me or whatever. I understand that because of the culture in which you grew up in. And at that time. So I said, so for me, it's I'm okay with it. I said, I love you dearly. I won't love you any less. I said, you know, you hold on to what you need to hold on. And I know what I know in terms of my own truth. But the funny thing is, is that my dad was never a church-going man. So, but he ended up in church and becoming a Christian. So I realized that was his way of seeking his forgiveness of the journey that he's been on. You know what I mean? That his atonement of what he had done, but it's just that he couldn't say so. You know what I mean? So but I realized the answer, but he just couldn't say it. You know what I mean? So and I said to him, Dad, I love you. I love you just as much as I do. And I'm glad I said that at the time, because for me it was my way of healing that part of me, embracing it and standing in that truth and letting them realize that you'll always be my dad, and I'm grateful for the role that he played in terms of making me the man I am today. And I told him that, but that's what I had to do at the time.
Thank you.
For me, Kwame, it's funny because me and Kwame is on this line together, and Kwame knows the whole of my family. So he knows my story in Tottenham. But I didn't, and it's funny, we've grown up, but we never ever shared our story until now, until we've got together to the oldest thing. So I'm hearing Kwame and I'm thinking, but we played football together and we've done this and we've done that, but we never realized that we was going through the same pain.
True, yeah.
Yeah. So that's something that's just come to me now. But in regards to my dad, as I said earlier on, I realized once I started to look at his journey, a bit like what Kwame said, what he was going through coming from Jamaica to this country here, and what he was experiencing with no culturally competent organization, drugged up. Actually, I just forgave him because he didn't have the support that he needed that I have now. So why am I holding a man accountable for something that he actually didn't have no control over? So I was able to just forgive him. And I think for me personally, that was very important, because unless I found it in myself to forgive my dad, without him actually saying sorry, I was still gonna hold on to it.
Okay, that's the point. Yeah,
I was still gonna hold on to it. So I was able to do that. And and let me be real, a lot of that came from the word of God as well. A lot of it came from the word of God. So here I am asking my sons for forgiveness. And within time, they were able to do it. But then you can't forgive your own dad, who didn't even have the organization at that time to ask for support. What are you talking about, Courtney? What are you talking about? And that's when I was like, you know what, God, I hear you. Yeah, I'm just gonna forgive him because he didn't have those organizations, to help him. He did what he could do at that time. Because then I started looking at it and like, wait a minute. And Kwame will tell you, like, I started here, but actually my dad was a leader. Because when back then, when the white man them were licking down black man, and then 2 days later you hear 3 white men get licked down, everybody knew it was my dad, but he did it by himself. So he was a leader in his own sense with what he had to do. He opened up doors for people to go into areas that they would never have gone into. He opened up the door that when I could walk in Tottenham, everybody know, whose football that is? You know whose son that is? So I had to look at things in a different line and celebrate. As I said, God blessed me with this father. Honor thy father, honor thy mother. It's not my business, it's God's business. And that's what I released. That's how I was able to release. And now I'm a dad's carer.
I will share something at the end of this, because that's a very powerful statement in itself. Right. So Dante and David.
Courtney, you start, brother. You start to stuff, but look at you, boy. You lucky I ain't over there. I want to just grab you right now. Boy, you start, boy, look. Give you a big old brotherly hug. You know what I mean? You too, Kwame. That's what's up, man. I'm sorry. I just had to have that in there. Real Esther.
That's fine.
We like we on it, so I can't like give my high five and do nothing. All right, go ahead.
Wow.
I'm gonna just pick up for me, it's 2 parts. For me, it's things that my dad, I ain't spent as much time as I wanted to with my dad, but it was a lot of quality time, I could say. It was a lot of lessons learned in between those moments. And one of the most profound lessons had to do with having a human experience. My dad, he would speak about that a lot until it really got in my brain of who are you dealing with? Like, you're dealing with people having a human experience. What does that really mean? After years, it really stuck in my brain, and I understood, like, okay, you got to deal with certain people, most people where they are. What does that really mean? What does that really mean? Like, I had to really break it down. I had to have him to break it down to me. He's like, okay, some people, when you went through whatever ordeal you probably went through them with, that you feel like you need an apology, they're probably a different person. So they've probably grown to the point where they can really comprehend what you're saying to them. Mm-hmm. Like, a lot of people will be so in their feelings, they can't even comprehend where you're coming from. They're just waiting for you to finish talking so they can say something. They're not even really listening to you. They're waiting for you to finish talking. Well, I did this and it was like this. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah.
It's like a lot of us grew up with that energy around us. So I had to get to the point where first I had to realize, okay, forgiveness.
Sorry, Courtney's got to go. Apologies. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you. We'll be in touch, definitely.
Yeah, thank you, guys. We have to keep this conversation going. They're kicking me out of the building, so we'll catch up.
Brother. But just to finish up real quick, he basically told me that forgiveness was for me.
Yes.
Like, because I didn't understand, like, I would see stories about, you know, people went to court and seen a young man or the man that killed their son and they forgave him and stuff. I'm like, how? Like, you know, yes. That Baltimore rage in me was like, no, I ain't trying to hear that. You know what I'm saying? But as I grew older, I understood, like, okay, when my father was saying and my mother was saying forgiveness is for you, I understood it because I'm like, okay, that person could still be in a place where, because of their pride, because of different things, they're not going to tell you what you need to hear. They're not going to give you that closure that you want. But me saying to myself, I forgive you, it's packing that drama away. Listen, I'm not going to keep drawing it out. You know, another thing my dad said to ties into it was hate is one of the most weirdest, craziest emotions ever, because you could be hating somebody for most of your life and they not even think about you. They don't even know you hate them. They don't even know you got no fear. They living their life, and the more you see them smiling and doing whatever, it's like, oh, look at him. Because your hate is one side. He ain't even thinking about you. That person ain't think about you. But you spend all this time and energy hating or feeling some kind of way about somebody that's not it's like you raking leaves in the wind.
Yes.
Like, you rake a pile of leaves, they come right back. What are we really doing here? So, I mean, just the priceless conversations that me and my dad had about people being at different points in their life and being open or insightful enough to be aware of that, to be aware they are, is priceless. Because, you know, it's like I come in a room talking about something and somebody just lost their parent. Like, you know, I'm not aware of my surroundings. I'm not aware of the situation. So I'm on another whole level when I come in, you know, instead of taking the time to make myself aware, to enlighten myself, like, okay, this person is here. Maybe I should come off like this. You know, it could be wisdom at the same time, because I wasn't thinking I wasn't thinking a lot of these ways when I was younger. I just wasn't. It wasn't that testosterone, that feel was sometimes just
up an eye.
make it jump out there. But wisdom, intelligence, enlightenment from talking to different people, being open, being honest, brings you to a place of accountability, brings you to place of awareness, of enlightenment, of knowledge about yourself first. You know, myself allows me to be able to deal with a person that's on 100,000 and still come out of the situation. Nobody going to jail, nobody hurt. Nobody, you know, ain't nobody do no bodily harm to nobody, because I took a moment to really think like, okay, this person is hurt about something. I'm not as hurt as him, so why should I need to get on his level? Like, you know, so, you know, answering your question, and to people that's listening on the line, you may come to this place of enlightenment, of comprehension. And when you come to that person, they may not give you what you need, but you got to be solid enough within yourself and to the point where you're accountable enough to say you apologize for your part, even though the person might not apologize for their part. Feel me? Some people feel like we need closure for that.
Yes.
You don't need that for closure. You know, you came to the understanding, you came to the agreement for yourself, within yourself, your own account. Listen, bro, listen, I did this. I was wrong. I wasn't thinking straight for whatever reason. There's no excuse, you know, for how things got, whatever the case is. They might not give you that. But growth teaches me and has taught me to take accountability for myself. I can't take accountability for you. Take accountability for the things you said out your mouth and your lack of emotional intelligence or emotional growth. You know, you can't wait on those things to complete yourself. You can't wait on those things to find closure, because a lot of us grow into our later years holding on to the craziest things imaginable that in so many ways, our relationship with our loved ones, our kids, our brothers and sisters, even our parents. However you find peace, however you find closure, I just pray that everybody listening is able to find that for themselves, because it's really a point of, it's really like a next level in your life. it's like a new level in your life. Like, dang, I'm focusing and thinking about new things and things I should be thinking about. That's because you tucked away the stuff that was out in your space, the drama that was out.
It's created space, isn't it? That's the thing. When you let go of something, it creates space.
Got to create that space. Got to. So important. For forgiveness, for moving on, for healing, all of that stuff. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Wow. That was a preachy part, isn't it? We're going to say hallelujah at the end of that. Brilliant. And David, I don't think you answered. No, you didn't answer that. Yeah. What is your did you touch on it? Forgiveness. Or if you're waiting for someone to come up and apologize for something. I don't know if you've had that situation, you know, what do you do with that space? Because a lot of times, as Dante said, people are looking for closure. And, you know, when I do my forgiveness workshops, I often said, well, what if they don't? Because a lot of people take that to their grave. So what are you going to do about it? Where does that leave you? So we've got a few minutes left.
Well, you like you said before, I mean, he already laid the foundation. You're doing it for yourself, number one. And because I believe in the God of the universe and the law to love my neighbor as myself, I'm forgiving him because I will want somebody to forgive me. You understand? So, and it's because I'm loving him as I love myself. I am the reference on how I love my brother. And that's the divine way. So those are the ways that that's the why I would do it. You know what I mean? And of course, God himself said, if you don't forgive them, I can't forgive you of the stuff you done did. Because you ain't pray forget. He might have did some stuff to you in this instance. But what about all that other stuff you done did to you gotta you, bro. You know what I mean? So that's been my reference in the way I see the world. So I've had my own family members, like I was just talking about, that, you know, I had to go to and have what I call being complete. A lot of people don't have a complete conversation where you address the things that you need to say in love, in the context of the betterment of our relationship, not trying to just air some things out and whatever. You know what I mean? And if they don't, whatever, and I've actually had it. It didn't go right. They was talking about what you talking about. It didn't go right, but I had the conversation. I went through with it. I prayed for them. I've been praying for them, and I planted the seed. I was able to speak my truth, and you know, I had to get the conversation back, get back control of the conversation because they was deflecting and boom, boom, boom. So I did what I had to do, and I said it, and I said it in love. And every time I do something in love, it always wins. It might not be in that moment. It might be months later, and that's what it was for a lot of people. Months later, some people said, I'm sorry. Some people apologized. Some people never apologized. They just came back and just started saying, hi, how is everything doing? You know what I mean? So, and that's just their way of, like, you know, they came back bearing gifts, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But I realize that everybody's on their journey, but I'm a firm believer. I was told something, which is beginning with the end in mind, which is very biblical as well, with the end in mind perspective. So I look at the end of my life, and I want to look at how did I live my life? You know, how did I handle these things? And I like the forgiveness. You know, I want to go. You know, that's part of how I want my legacy to be. And so I love those movies where you go in the future and then you come back to reality. It's big. You can go and go to how you want to leave this world. What are your friends saying at your funeral? What are your coworkers saying? What is your pastor saying? What is your whatever spiritual advisor, your counselor, you know, people that you know you, your brother, your sister. What are these people saying about you? And if you don't like where you are now, if it's not lining up with what you think they're going to say about you at your funeral, then you got some work to do. And that's been, you know, how I've lived my life. So forgiveness is definitely one of those things where I just want to have it clean. I want to get the monkey off my back, the weight off my back, you know what I mean? I didn't even realize. I'll say this one last thing. I was at a personal development seminar, and we were talking about. I know my brother Kwame was talking about how his father was raised, and my family's from Guyana, South America. So my father was raised very, very strict because his father was very, very strict. And even though he was a man, my dad was a nice guy, very nice guy, but he had a very strict side as well. You know. So we knew him through the word of God. We knew him through the stories. My father would talk to you about the Bible all day. And we feared him because of how God used my father. Like my father, in a different conversation, he did some things that straight out the Bible. Like blows my mind when I think about it as a grown man. But so that, you know, having that I was at this personal, and my father already passed away. My brother Dante, we were at a concert in LA, California, somewhere where we was at. California at some concert. Ludacris.
We were about to go on stage. We was about to go on. We was in the lobby, about to go on stage, about to leave for the show.
Exactly. And I got the call that my father had passed away, and it was just like so many, you know, because I'm young, you know, I'm chasing a dream, you know, we high school, boom, 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 we running, you know what I mean? I might come home, you know, every once a holiday or something like that, but everything we on the road. My father passed away. What? You know what I mean? So I'm blown away because I didn't even have a clue anything was wrong. You know what I mean? I'm like, this is like out of the blue. So fast forward until this conversation at this personal development thing, and I got up to talk about something else, and there were different people getting on the mic, and somebody got on the mic and she talked about her father, and it changed everything that I was about to talk about. and she said what she said, and then I was stuck there, and the lady was like, "All right, you're next. Say what you have to say." And I began to talk about my father, and then she began to like realize that I was struggling, and so she began to just pull it out of me. You know what I mean? Like, let me just help you here and pull it out. And I was basically, I didn't even realize I didn't even know I needed to do this. You know what I mean? But she basically said, "Say what you need to say." And I began to talk, and it just broke me down in front of the whole group. I'm getting kind of a little choked trying to thinking about it right now, but I unpacked some things that I didn't even realize that I was carrying. And it was just me talking it. Just saying it released it. Yeah. Just saying it released it. The power. Some things as men, we need to say it. We are not saying, we talk about a lot of other stuff, but these are conversations, again, we don't say. And these are the conversations that will liberate us.
There we go.
And take back our families, take back our community. And now, that's the end of the story. But anyway, I just wanted to leave with that. Appreciate you again for having me.
No, thank you all. I mean, I could sit and listen to you guys. I was actually thinking that 15 minutes that I said that you would all get. I know, Kwame, you did say it wouldn't be, but we just had to allow. And that's why I said this conference is going to be an incredible conference, because it's going to be a whole day. It may even turn into be a weekend, but whatever it takes to really take these conversations and put them onto a bigger platform. And yes, at the end we go and dance and have fun, because that's part of the healing and cathartic, but these have to be done. And even I was saying to Kwame this week, there's so much craziness out there. I see it. I mean, it's getting worse, and we have to learn to communicate. We have to learn to share. We have to learn because there's a madness out there. There's a chaos on lots of different levels. And I'm quite sensitive energetically, so I can feel a lot. And I'm finding when I'm walking the streets now, I am so hypersensitive to the energy of fear and hatred and all of that. And the more we have these conversations, it will empower others to say, we now have the chance to release that, because we've got to bring back the village. So ladies and gents, I know I've gone over time a little bit, but I hope you've taken away something from this. In March, what have I got in March? I've either got some special guests in March, or I've got some practitioners. I can't remember what's on my schedule, but we've got practitioners who are going to be talking about the different healing modalities that yourselves as men can reach out and use. And they'll be keeping this dialogue going. So thank you, Dante. Thank you, David. Thank you, Kwame. Thank you, Courtney. And thank you last month to EJ, to Coach Anthony Lycan, and to Gerald Alston, who shared their stories. And Kwame has got the link. Hopefully the link, he's been bugging me about playing your song. So hopefully you'll be able to see this. If not, I'm going to play it out anyway.
Yes, you got to share them. Come on.
Kwame!
Hey, bless up, David. Bless up, Dante.
Yeah. Jamaica?
Yeah, I'm in Jamaica at the moment, yeah.
Okay, so you can cook, huh?
Yeah, man, I can cook. Yeah.
Like you go down, you know what I mean, in the yard, mind there,
We're gonna share this. We're gonna share
it. All right. Yeah, David, man, I can cook. Bless up. I love you guys.
Man, love you.
Yes, man. Not hearing it though.
Is it unmuted?
Yes, if you're muted, you muted that, Esther?
Probably unmuted.
She's not here. She's hearing it. No.
Is it unmuted on the?
Yes, I'm sharing it.
Did you whole screen it? Maybe you have to whole screen it to get the music to.
Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Oh,
it's not.
Yeah, now.
No, it's not playing. Can't hear it though.
It's not playing.
Yeah, it's not playing. We're seeing it, but we're not hearing it.
Oh.
She's the only one hearing it.
Anyway, y'all
But never mind, because I'm taking off anyway for playing this. When I edit,
Awesome.
I'm going to edit this and I can put that in. So I'm going to take this and edit it. So thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Stay in touch, and yes, let's rock this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Brother Kwame. Yes.
Bless up, Dante, man. Bless up, man. Bless up.
Bless Kwame.
On the Sofa with Esther in the series Men Supporting Men on the last Wednesday of every month at 8 o'clock GMT is now sponsored by Father to Father, turning the hearts of the fathers to their children and the hearts of the children to their fathers. Just to die. Frames worn by Esther Austin on the show today are sponsored by Run It First.